How well is the RTX 4070 Ti Super holding up in the latest games at the end of 2024 when paired with an ultrawide 1440p monitor? Let's find out. We are going to have a look at STALKER 2, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2, Cyberpunk 2077, as well as Hogwarts Legacy. And we'll be experiencing these games on the MSI OLED monitor. This is 3440x1440. In terms of PC specifications, I'm using the MSI Gaming X Slim 4070 Ti Super paired with the Ryzen 7 9800X3D as part of my Be Quiet PC build, powered by MSI. If you're interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can find them on Amazon at the links in the description below. There is no need to spend that much money on Windows 11 Pro when you can get it much cheaper at cdkeyoffer.com. Additionally, use discount code iVadim to get 25% off and bring the total price down to $22. Furthermore, you can find Windows 10 Pro as well as Microsoft Office at much cheaper prices as well. Get yours now at the link in the description below, and don't forget to use discount code iVadim to get 25% off. Let's start with STALKER 2. Graphics quality is set to the highest possible. That's epic. Everything is on epic. The only thing I did was turn off motion blur, and we're using DLAA at the moment, although this is not my preferred set of settings to play this game on this monitor. That I will show you next. And to understand why, we should check out this performance. Yeah, at native resolution, the 4070 Ti Super cannot deliver a consistent 60 plus FPS experience in this game with this monitor. As you can see, we're getting dips to around 50-ish from time to time, and this isn't even the most graphically demanding scene. It is just like a normal average scene in the game that you will encounter over and over again. That's why I prefer using DLSS upscaling set to quality mode. That makes a huge difference. Check it out, we're now getting up to 80 FPS in the scene where we used to be getting something like 55. And this is much more pleasant. The game looks good and the performance is fine. I mean, you've seen just now that there was a dip to around 60-ish, and even using this set of settings, I'm constantly running into situations where the performance drops to something like 55. So having that 70 to 80 FPS in most scenes ensures that I'm not dropping anywhere close to 50 in the most demanding scenes. But I do suspect that most of those scenes are CPU limited. Hopefully the game developers will fix that CPU utilization issue in future patches, because getting bad CPU performance on the most powerful gaming CPU that is currently available, the 9800X3D, is kind of ridiculous. Nonetheless, I've been playing this game for hours and hours, I don't know, probably 15 to 20 hours at this point, and this is the exact setup I've been using, the exact settings I've been using, and I am having a good time. Let's see what happens if we enable DLSS frame generation. The image fluidity has increased dramatically. Check it out, 100 plus FPS. This is pretty good. Personally, I am not using frame generation to play this game, so I don't actually know how good the implementation is, but my first impressions are, it looks okay. I mean, there's a lot of visual issues that are just baked into the game, so it's not like gonna be perfect experience either way, using DLSS or not using DLSS. Either way, it's gonna be having some visual issues every now and then, especially with reflections. I really wish that the game developers would add proper hardware-based ray tracing, because the software-based ray tracing is absolute garbage. The reflections look horrible, the shadows look just meh, I would say. Yeah, that is one of the top things on my wish list for future patches. Next up is Black Myth Wukong, and in contrast to Stalker 2, this game does feature full hardware-based ray tracing, so let's enable that, set it to the highest possible setting, and we'll be using very high graphics quality preset, and trust me, we are going to need DLSS resolution upscaling right away. There's just no way we can use full ray tracing without it. So let's set it to 67%, that's DLSS quality. And right away you can see that the FPS is less than ideal. It's way less than 60 that I would normally aim for in this kind of game. We're currently experiencing 40 plus FPS, just because we're using hardware-based ray tracing. In terms of visual quality, ray tracing is well worth it because the shadows are beautiful, reflections look great. That is something you are definitely missing out on if you are not using ray tracing or using software-based ray tracing like Lumen in Stalker 2, for example. This game is also built in Unreal Engine 5, so it does have that, but right now we're taking a look at hardware-based ray tracing. So let's see if we can improve the performance. At this resolution, I do not like using anything below DLSS quality mode, so I'm not gonna touch that slider. Let's use frame generation and see if that will help. And indeed, the experience is now better. We're getting consistently 60 plus FPS, sometimes 70. And you can actually enjoy the visuals. However, if you care a lot about controls responsiveness for, dodging boss attacks, then you might not be so eager to use frame generation, because basically we are getting 40 plus base FPS. That is not a lot if you are a hardcore gamer and want the best controls responsiveness. But if you just want to enjoy the story casually and enjoy high quality visuals, then this is the way to go. We could disable frame generation and just lower the ray tracing preset down to medium to reclaim some of that performance. Personally, I don't think it's worth it, because that means that we're turning off those beautiful reflections. Reflections are my favorite thing in the games with ray tracing. But at least we're still getting beautiful shadows, high quality shadows. Yeah, that is nice. And as you can see, 50 plus FPS, reaching to 60 sometimes. This is a much more responsive experience in terms of controls. And let's enable frame generation with ray tracing medium preset, just to see what kind of experience we can expect from that. And yeah, it's 80 plus FPS right now. The experience definitely feels smoother, especially since this is an OLED monitor, so there's literally no motion blur on this panel. Yeah, beautiful. Actually, that wasn't my preferred set of settings to play this game. I prefer playing this game without ray tracing. I'll show you why in just a minute. So let's have a look at the first set of settings. So we are at native resolution, 100%, no frame generation, no ray tracing, very high graphics quality preset. As you can see, native resolution, even without ray tracing, is pretty difficult for the 4070 Ti Super to render in this game. Yeah, 50 plus FPS, this is not the way to go. That is why I still prefer using DLSS resolution upscaling set to quality mode in this game, even without ray tracing. So let's set it to quality mode, that's 67%. And that significantly improves our performance. Take a look at that, 70 FPS, 69 was just then, nice. Right, so let's take a look at the combat scenario right here. Yeah, we're still staying above 60 FPS, nice. And even if we transform into another form, yeah, initially we are getting an FPS drop, but after a little while it evens out, and once more we're getting 60 plus FPS. And the reason why I want higher FPS is right there. You see those frame time spikes and frame rate spikes? Yeah, that is stuttering. That is what makes the gameplay not as pleasant, not as smooth. So what I want to do is I want to be able to lock the FPS at a certain value. In this case, that will be 60 FPS. Let's lock it and just keep an eye on those graphs, yeah? You see, they're much smoother now. Although because our FPS is still quite low, we're still experiencing some stutters like that one there. We're going to have to increase our FPS by a lot more than this if we want to experience this game completely stutter-free. For example, if you want a consistent 60 FPS, I would recommend adjusting your settings so that you have something like 80 to 90 plus FPS. But this is just how most Unreal Engine 5 games work, unfortunately. Yeah. So I'm not thrilled about many game developers switching to Unreal Engine 5 because this stuttering problem is happening in many games. Moving on to Space Marine 2. And in this game, we are using native resolution, 1440p ultra-wide, graphics quality is set to ultra. Even at native resolution, the performance initially looks pretty good, 70 plus FPS. However, we will certainly experience some performance drops during GPU-heavy enemy encounters. This is not it right now, but yeah. Let's take a look at this horde over here. 65, 63 FPS, oh, 55 even. The performance drops quite significantly. Although this is still a perfectly playable and perfectly enjoyable experience. But staying so close to 60 FPS and even dropping below that from time to time is not something that I want to see in this kind of game. When I'm playing Space Marine 2, I want a perfectly smooth experience, especially since I'm using the 4070 Ti Super. That's why I think it is still best to use DLSS resolution upscaling. Let's set it to quality mode. Hold on, where is it? There it is. Quality mode, enable, and take a look at how much of a difference that makes. We're currently getting 100 plus FPS in this area, and let's move on to the next one, encounter some enemies and see what kind of performance we'll get then. Because the difference between DLSS quality and native at 1440p on this kind of screen is absolutely negligible. I mean, I cannot tell the difference between native and DLSS quality. Here's a nice group of enemies. Let's see. No drops below 100 so far. Nice. Oh, there we go. More enemies. And I've seen 97 FPS, 94 FPS, 91. That is the lowest number I've seen so far, 91 FPS. You see, it is a much more pleasant experience using DLSS upscaling. That is especially noticeable on a high refresh rate monitor like this one here. I have 175 Hz and oh, 88 FPS just then. This is Cyberpunk 2077 and I want to start with the highest graphics quality possible. That's ray tracing overdrive, which means path tracing is enabled. And we'll use DLSS set to quality mode right away, although we are not going to use any frame generation for now. It appears that path tracing is a little bit too much for the 4070 Ti Super to handle at this resolution, even if we enable DLSS quality. Yeah, this is not gonna be the best gaming experience that you can get out of this game and this hardware. Definitely not worth it, so we'll adjust those settings in just a moment. Just want to take a look at the ghosting, if any. Is it happening? Yes, indeed, it is happening. Right. Yeah, this is something that this game suffers from when you have ray reconstruction enabled and ray tracing set to overdrive mode and your FPS is low. You'll experience a lot of ghosting. There's gonna be like smearing all around the NPCs when they're set against a background that is a bit lighter, or even if it's darker, still, regardless of that, yeah, ghosting is present, not pleasant. That's why I think we should go for something a bit more normal. For example, ray tracing ultra preset, no path tracing. I'm pretty sure that we'll still need DLSS. Let's set it to quality mode. Oh, and by the way, I always disable all of these things that make the image blurry, motion blur, film grain, depth of field, all of that is off. This is better. 60 plus FPS in this heavily populated area is pretty nice. We can enjoy ray tracing in this game with the 4070 Ti Super, just no path tracing. It is a much more pleasant experience both in terms of image fluidity, because we're getting above 60 FPS, as well as overall image quality, because there's no more of that ghosting. Yeah, there's just a tiny little bit, but that is to be expected. None of these games are perfect, but compared to the overdrive mode, this is much better. It's not game breaking at all. My immersion is intact. I am enjoying the game and the visuals. But what is interesting is that the GPU load is not at 100%. So even with the 9800X3D CPU, which is the fastest on the market right now, it appears that we are CPU limited in this game to a certain extent. Let's check out another set of settings. That is Ultra preset, no ray tracing, no DLSS, which means NVIDIA DLAA enabled. That is normal native resolution. None of that upscaling going on. It is kind of bizarre to see that at native resolution, the 4070 Ti Super doesn't really deliver a good experience. 40 plus FPS? Is that it? Could that be because of DLAA? Let's disable that, shall we? Indeed, DLAA has been consuming a lot of that performance. Take a look at that. Now we're getting close to 60 FPS. Sometimes dips below 60 momentarily and then jumps back up to 60 plus. If you're looking for a native resolution experience, then this is perfectly fine. Although personally I think it's best to use resolution upscaling, so DLSS set to quality mode. Let's see how that will perform. Yeah, this is a much more pleasant, much more consistent experience, well above 60 FPS, sometimes reaching 90, 85, 88. Brilliant. And to get rid of those inconsistencies in the frame rate as well as frame time and make the gameplay smoother, we can lock FPS. Let's set it to 60, shall we? So it's gonna be a maximum of 60 FPS. And voila! Perfection. Smooth experience. Look at that graph. It is absolutely flat. Oh yes, and that is definitely making a difference to the overall image presentation on the screen. It is nice and smooth, enjoyable. And even in the area like this one here, with a lot of NPCs, for the most part, the FPS stays consistent. The last game we're going to have a look at today is Hogwarts Legacy, and it actually performs much better than I expected. For context, we are using DLAA, which means native resolution, no upscaling, no frame generation. Graphics quality preset is set to the absolute maximum, that's everything ultra, as well as ray tracing, everything enabled, ultra preset. You can't max it out any more than this. And we're still getting well above 60 FPS. Even in the most demanding scenarios, we're still experiencing above 60 FPS. 90, 87, nice. This game is not running smoothly on any hardware, just because of its game engine. Yeah, you can see that frame rate graph and frame time graph. It's not flat at all. Of course, we can make it flatter by locking FPS at 60. And now, flat and flat with just minor spikes every now and then. Let's unlock the FPS once more and see if we can get a high refresh rate experience by using DLSS set to quality mode. It is near impossible to get a 120 FPS consistent experience in this game. Yeah, there will be some scenes, some areas where that is possible, but if you are in a heavily populated area, such as this one right here, FPS will dip to 100 or 90 or even lower sometimes. However, thanks to DLSS, we can still experience this game in a much more pleasant way than we had previously. We could limit FPS at 60 before we were using DLSS. Now I think we can lock it at 90. 30 more FPS on screen is significant. This is like the next level after 60. I always go for 60, next level is 90, and 120 is just perfection. We're getting more dips than we did at 60 FPS, but the overall gameplay is not bad at all. It's pretty smooth. But those stutters, yeah, you will still feel them. That's just specifics of this particular game. Once more, Unreal Engine 5 delivers us a stuttery experience. That's just the way it is. No way around it. In conclusion, I think that the 4070 Ti Super is a great pair to the Ultrawide 1440p monitor. I'm quite enjoying my games using this setup. Yeah, it's awesome. Of course, you have to keep in mind that some of the latest and most demanding games do require you to use DLSS resolution upscaling set to quality mode, at least, if you want a good experience, something like 60 plus FPS, while keeping the graphics quality on the highest settings possible. Personally, I don't have an issue with using DLSS on this monitor. If it's set to quality mode, I don't see any difference between quality mode DLSS and native resolution. I'm always switching on DLSS to get those extra frames. I approve this combo. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you're interested in any products featured in this video, you can find them on Amazon at the links in the description below. Reward my work with a like if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and subscribe for more if you haven't already. It was I, Vadim. Until next time.